What if your thoughts aren't born inside your brain, but ripple through the very fabric of spacetime itself? Take a slow breath, feel it move through you like a tide. Somewhere between that inhale and exhale, something extraordinary happens: awareness. You are not just matter reacting to chemistry. You feel, you notice, you are. But where does that awareness truly live? Is it trapped behind your eyes, humming in the neural labyrinth of the brain? Or does it reach far beyond, across the cosmic web of stars and galaxies, across the trembling skin of spacetime itself, an infinite ocean of mind from which every conscious being arises like a temporary wave? It's a strange thought, almost too large to fit inside the skull. Yet as we drift deeper into the question, it begins to feel less like speculation and more like remembrance. Perhaps we've always known this, somewhere in the quiet between thoughts. The sense that our minds are not isolated islands, but reflections of something vaster, timeless, and beautifully strange. Tonight, we will walk through that doorway. Picture yourself lying beneath a vast, starlit sky. The air is cool, still, and ancient. Each star above you burns with a quiet certainty, a light that has traveled millions of years to reach your eyes. Somewhere out there, entire galaxies drift like slow-moving dreams. And yet, within your chest, another universe stirs, alive, aware, wondering what all of this means. For centuries, humanity has gazed upward and asked, what is this connection? Why does the night sky make us feel something so deep, so inexplicably personal? It is as though the cosmos is not a cold, indifferent expanse, but a mirror, reflecting the very awareness that is looking at it. This is where the question begins to unfold. Is consciousness a fleeting biological accident, or is it a fundamental property of the universe itself, interwoven with spacetime? Ancient civilizations whispered their answers in myth and poetry. The Egyptians saw consciousness as the divine breath of Ra, animating flesh with the light of the sun. In India, the sages spoke of Atman, the inner self, as not separate from Brahman, the universal consciousness. The Greeks, too, imagined the world as a living being, suffused with psyche, soul. To them, the cosmos was alive, aware, and we were small reflections of that great, breathing whole. And then, much later, science arrived. The language changed, no longer gods and spirits, but particles and fields. Yet, the mystery deepened rather than dissolved. The more we learned about matter, the less solid it became. Atoms turned out to be mostly empty space. Subatomic particles behaved like probability clouds, dancing to invisible rhythms. Reality, it seemed, was less like a machine and more like a dream made of math and light. Still, we searched for a dividing line, the precise point where dead matter turns into living mind. The neuroscientists said it must happen in the brain, somewhere in the tangled circuits of billions of neurons. And indeed, the brain is astonishing. A cathedral of electrochemical storms, each flash of electricity a fragment of thought. But even as we map every neuron, consciousness continues to shimmer just beyond reach. It refuses to be captured, like a reflection on water that dissolves the moment you touch it. So what if the brain isn't the source of consciousness, but the receiver of it? Imagine it as an instrument, a delicate radio that doesn't create music, but tunes into an invisible symphony already playing. The notes come not from the device, but from the field around it. Could our awareness be something like that? A frequency vibrating through the universe, momentarily focused into the human mind. Take a moment to think about this. When you listen to music, the sound waves move through the air, through your body, into your ears. Yet the feeling of the music, the ache in your chest, the swell of joy or nostalgia, doesn't exist in the air itself. It emerges in the space between perception and meaning. Consciousness might be the same kind of emergence, not from neurons alone, but from the interaction between mind and the deeper structure of spacetime. Modern physics hints that spacetime is not a passive stage where the drama of existence unfolds, but an active participant in the play. It bends, curves, and ripples. It stores energy. It even vibrates at the quantum level. If spacetime is a living fabric, then perhaps consciousness is one of its properties, an intrinsic quality of the universe, much like gravity or light. Think of water. When calm, it reflects perfectly. When disturbed, it forms waves, eddies, and currents. Consciousness might be the same, a still ocean when undisturbed, becoming thoughts, sensations, and emotions when stirred by experience. In this sense, every conscious being would be a wave on that vast ocean, each unique and yet inseparable from the water that gives it form. This vision blurs the old boundaries. No longer are we isolated observers peering out at a mechanical universe. Instead, we become expressions of the universe observing itself, small pockets of awareness through which space-time looks inward and wonders. Every neuron that fires, every emotion that arises might be the cosmos feeling itself from within. It's a dizzying thought, one that challenges the foundations of how we see ourselves. If consciousness truly arises from space-time, then your mind is not a fragile flicker doomed to vanish with your body. It is a pattern in the fabric of existence itself, temporary in form, but eternal in essence. Death, then, might not be an end, but a change of pattern, a return to the background hum from which all minds emerge. Of course, science is cautious here. Theories are not truths until they can be tested, measured, observed. Yet, even among the equations, something poetic lingers. Einstein once said that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible, that somehow the human mind can understand the laws of nature at all. It's as if the cosmos encoded itself in us, ensuring that it could one day look back and say, "Ah, so this is what I am." There is beauty in that symmetry. The stars gave birth to the atoms in your body, the carbon in your cells, the calcium in your bones. You are literally made of stardust. And now that stardust has become aware. Through you, the universe contemplates its own reflection. Perhaps that is why the night sky stirs such quiet emotion. On some deep, instinctive level, we recognize the stars as home, not just in a physical sense, but in a conscious one. The vastness we see above is the same vastness we feel within. And so, as you lie there beneath that shimmering sky, remember, you are not a creature trapped in space, staring upward at the cosmos. You are the cosmos, staring back at itself, asking the oldest question in existence: who am I? To see if that could be true, we must first understand what space-time really is. The doorway opens wider. Beyond it, the fabric of reality waits, breathing softly in the dark. Space-time is not what it seems. It is not the silent void we once imagined, the blank canvas on which the story of the universe is painted. It is the story itself, restless and alive, rippling and folding in ways that defy imagination. When Einstein first proposed that gravity was not a force at all, but the curvature of spacetime, he changed not only physics, but our place in the cosmos. The universe was no longer a stage. It was an active participant, a living geometry, capable of shaping and being shaped. Imagine, for a moment, that you are floating beside a massive planet, drifting in the weightless dark. There are no ropes or invisible strings pulling you toward it, and yet you begin to fall. You are not being pulled by gravity, not really. You are simply moving along the curves of spacetime itself. The planet bends the fabric of reality around it, creating a gentle slope, and you follow that curve as naturally as a leaf sliding down the surface of a wave. This realization rewrote the laws of nature. What we feel as gravity is the geometry of spacetime itself, flexing under the presence of mass and energy. A star does not sit in space, it creates space around it, shaping the invisible contours that guide the motion of planets and light. Even the path of a beam of starlight bending around a black hole is nothing more than the light following the shape of spacetime, obedient to the invisible structure of existence. Einstein once said that time and space are woven together into a single entity, a fabric that stretches and curves, binding the fate of everything within it. When a planet moves, it sends ripples through this cosmic fabric, faint waves that travel across the universe. These are gravitational waves, discovered a century after Einstein predicted them. They are the universe's faintest whispers, born from the collision of black holes or the collapse of stars, passing through you and me this very moment, ever so gently stretching and compressing the space between atoms. It is a humbling thought. Space-time is not still. It moves, it sings, it trembles. The cosmos is not a static clockwork, but a vast, trembling symphony, vibrating across scales of unimaginable size. Yet the mystery deepens as we look closer. On the largest scales, space-time seems smooth, like an endless sheet of silk flowing through eternity. But when we peer into the infinitesimal depths, into the quantum realm, the silk begins to fray. Physicists suspect that space-time itself flickers with microscopic fluctuations, tiny bursts of energy appearing and vanishing in trillionths of a second. Even in perfect vacuum, space is not empty, it seethes. Virtual particles arise from nothingness, collide, and annihilate, creating a foam-like chaos beneath the calm surface of reality. If you could somehow shrink yourself down to the Planck scale, to a realm so small that a single proton would seem like a galaxy, you would not find stillness there. You would find movement, a roaring sea of quantum energy. The concept of empty space dissolves entirely. Nothing is ever truly nothing. This vision of spacetime is astonishing. What we once called nothingness may be the most fundamental something of all, a field of infinite potential, capable of birthing both matter and mind. Every atom, every photon, every thought could be seen as a ripple on this ocean of spacetime, a transient pattern in an ever-moving whole. Consider water. On the surface of a calm lake, you might see the reflection of the moon, pure and still. But drop a pebble, and the reflection breaks into ripples, waves, patterns of movement that briefly distort the image before fading again into stillness. The water itself never ceases to exist. It simply changes its form. Perhaps spacetime is like that. The stars, the galaxies, even consciousness itself could be the ripples, while the underlying water, the field of spacetime, remains eternally present. The quantum physicist John Wheeler once said, "Spacetime tells matter how to move. Matter tells spacetime how to curve." This delicate dance between energy and geometry suggests that everything is entangled in a grand conversation. When a planet moves, spacetime bends in response. When spacetime bends, light and energy change their path. The universe listens and replies endlessly, and within that dialogue, there may be something more. If spacetime is not empty, if it hums with the music of quantum fluctuations, then perhaps it also carries information. The vacuum might be a storage medium for the universe's most profound data, the blueprint of existence. Modern theories like the holographic principle propose that everything we experience in 3 dimensions could be encoded on a 2-dimensional surface of spacetime, like a cosmic hologram projecting reality outward from its boundaries. This is not merely poetic, it is one of the most serious scientific ideas of the last century. Information, it turns out, may be as fundamental as space, time, or energy. And if information is fundamental, might consciousness be its most intricate expression? Consider how awareness itself works. Every thought you have is built upon patterns, electrical signals, molecular interactions, information flowing through neurons. But if spacetime already contains and transmits information at the deepest level, then perhaps consciousness arises not from the brain alone, but from the very field in which the brain exists. The brain might be a pattern recognition device, an instrument attuned to the informational flow of spacetime, momentarily localizing awareness into a human form. There is a growing whisper among scientists and philosophers alike that information might not just describe the universe, it might be the universe. Reality could be an ocean of computation, with consciousness emerging as the self-awareness of that process. In this view, spacetime is the living fabric that thinks, learns, and evolves through its patterns. Every particle, every wave, every being is a fragment of that larger thought. Pause for a moment. Look around, wherever you are. The air, the light, the quiet hum of electricity, the movement of your breath, all of it is spacetime in motion, shaping itself into form, sound, and sensation. What you call you is not separate from it. You are an eddy in that flow, a temporary swirl of energy and awareness. When you think, when you feel, when you look at the stars, it is spacetime perceiving itself through you. This idea challenges centuries of human understanding. We were taught that consciousness is a rare accident, confined to living brains on a small blue planet. But if spacetime itself is the substrate of awareness, then consciousness may be as universal as gravity. It may arise wherever complexity allows the cosmic fabric to fold in on itself and recognize its own reflection. Such a view blurs the border between science and philosophy, between the measurable and the mystical. It suggests that existence is not a lifeless mechanism, but a self-knowing organism, a vast, pulsating continuum that explores itself through time, space, and mind. Every moment of awareness, from the simplest flicker of a neuron to the birth of a galaxy, becomes part of that exploration. If spacetime is dynamic and alive with quantum fluctuations, then perhaps consciousness is not an emergent property of matter at all, but of spacetime itself. Awareness might be what happens when the universe's geometry becomes complex enough to perceive its own curvature. The cosmos could be dreaming, and we are the dreamer's eyes. Let this possibility rest in you for a moment, like a feather settling into still air. Imagine the space around you, invisible yet alive, bending gently around every object, rippling softly with the faint echoes of creation. You are not separate from that fabric. You are part of it, woven from the same threads that hold galaxies together. And if that is true, then the line between mind and matter begins to dissolve. There is only one thing, endlessly transforming, endlessly aware. But to understand how consciousness might rise from this field, we must look closer still, beyond the smooth curves of spacetime, into the smallest ripples that reality allows, into the quantum realm where the true texture of existence begins to shimmer. At the smallest scales of existence, the universe begins to whisper. Its language is not made of words or sounds, but of probabilities, vibrations, and fleeting appearances. Here, in the quantum realm, certainty evaporates. A particle can be in many places at once or nowhere at all. It can exist and not exist, depending on how you look at it, or whether you look at all. It is a place so small that even imagination struggles to fit inside. Down here, matter is not matter as we know it. It is possibility. Each atom, each electron, each photon flickers like a thought before it becomes real. The closer we peer, the less solid everything becomes. Reality itself begins to blur, trembling on the edge between being and not being. For centuries, scientists imagined the universe as a predictable machine. If you knew where every particle was and how fast it was moving, you could, in theory, calculate the entire future. That was the dream of classical physics. But the quantum world shattered that dream like glass. It revealed a cosmos that refuses to be pinned down, a world that hides its secrets until it is forced to reveal them, and even then, only partially. Imagine standing before a curtain that hides countless possible realities. On one side is the unseen quantum realm, where particles exist in overlapping states, waves of potential stretching through time and space. On the other side is the world we experience, the world of definite things, where a cat is either alive or dead, a light is on or off, an electron is here or there. The act of looking, of observing, draws back the curtain for a moment. And in that instant, one of those possibilities solidifies, collapsing into the world we call real. This strange transformation, the shift from probability to actuality, is one of the deepest mysteries in all of science. Quantum theory tells us that before we measure something, it exists as a wave function, a mathematical description of everything it could be. But the moment of observation changes everything. The wave collapses, and the particle chooses a definite state. It is as if reality waits to be seen before deciding what it will be. Take the famous double-slit experiment. When light passes through two narrow slits, it creates an interference pattern on the other side, a delicate pattern of bright and dark stripes, as if the light were a wave passing through both slits at once. But when scientists set up detectors to see which slit the photons actually go through, the interference pattern disappears. The light behaves as if it only went through one slit, like a particle. Observation changes the outcome. Simply knowing alters reality. This is not an illusion or a trick of the instruments. It has been tested again and again in countless ways, and always the universe responds as if it is aware of being watched. The act of observation, the simple act of knowing, transforms potential into presence. So what does it mean to observe? In the early days of quantum theory, this question haunted even its founders. Niels Bohr, one of the pioneers, said that nothing is real until it is measured. Werner Heisenberg proposed that the very act of measuring disturbs what is being measured, making complete certainty impossible. Albert Einstein refused to accept this, famously asking, "Do you really believe the moon isn't there when you're not looking at it?" Yet, despite his protest, experiments continued to confirm the unsettling truth. At the quantum level, the universe behaves as if observation matters. The deeper implication is almost impossible to ignore. If the act of observation brings reality into being, then what is doing the observing? Could consciousness itself be part of the equation? Consider this. Before an observation, a particle exists as a superposition, a spread-out wave of all possible states. When observed, it collapses into a single one. But what if observation is not merely a physical act performed by a machine or a detector, but an interaction with awareness itself? What if consciousness is not an afterthought of matter, but the very thing that gives matter its definite form? Take a moment to imagine the enormity of that possibility. If consciousness participates in collapsing the wave function, then every act of perception, every glance, every thought, every awareness of existence could be shaping reality at its roots. The physical world might not be the source of consciousness. It might be the result of it. Reality could be a shared dream, stabilized and structured by collective observation, the mind of the cosmos continuously watching itself into existence. This idea blurs the line between physics and philosophy, between the measurable and the mystical. Some physicists, uneasy with such implications, argue that observation does not require a conscious observer. Any interaction that causes a particle to lose its quantum ambiguity, a collision with another particle, a record in an instrument, counts as observation. But even that does not solve the riddle, because if every interaction counts, then the universe is continuously observing itself. Every atom, every photon, every quantum fluctuation becomes a participant in the grand act of creation. Consciousness and observation, in this sense, may not be separate at all. They may be aspects of the same fundamental process. In the quantum world, everything is connected through a strange phenomenon called entanglement. When two particles interact, they can become linked in such a way that the state of one instantly determines the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, but experiments have shown it to be real. Distance does not seem to matter. Space and time themselves appear secondary to this deep, invisible connection. If awareness plays any role in observation, then perhaps consciousness itself is entangled across space-time, linking all perceivers into one vast network of knowing. Your awareness, mine, and that of the stars might all be threads of the same field, shimmering together, influencing one another across unimaginable distances. Such a view transforms everything. The world becomes not a fixed structure, but a participatory process, an ongoing act of observation and creation. Every moment, reality is born anew from the interplay between potential and perception. The universe, in this sense, is not an object. It is an event, unfolding as awareness meets possibility. Think about this the next time you close your eyes. The darkness you see is not empty. It is a field of infinite probabilities waiting to take shape. The act of looking, of noticing, gives it texture, form, existence. Even your thoughts ripple through this field, collapsing countless micro-possibilities into fleeting moments of experience. This is what makes the quantum realm both unsettling and profoundly intimate. It tells us that we are not separate from the universe, observing it from the outside. We are woven into its fabric. We are participants in the ongoing creation of the world. Every breath, every heartbeat, every flicker of thought is part of the universe knowing itself a little more clearly. Some physicists, like John Wheeler, pushed this idea even further. He proposed the participatory anthropic principle, the notion that the universe requires observers in order to exist in a definite form. Reality, he suggested, is not simply out there, waiting for us to find it. It is something that crystallizes through the act of being observed. In his words, we are tiny patches of the universe looking at itself and building itself. It is a hauntingly beautiful idea that consciousness and the cosmos are not two separate things, but reflections of the same underlying process. Awareness may not arise within spacetime. Rather, spacetime and everything within it may arise within awareness. And if that is true, then every observation, every act of noticing is sacred. The universe becomes a mirror, endlessly folding upon itself, awareness gazing into awareness, moment after moment, dream after dream. Yet, for all its poetry, one question remains. When we speak of observation, what exactly do we mean? Is it simply the detection of energy or something deeper, the spark of awareness itself? The quantum whispers do not answer directly. They leave us with silence, a silence that invites curiosity. To follow its trail, we must look closer, not at the particles, but at the observer, at the mysterious presence behind every act of seeing, the quiet witness that turns the possible into the real. And so we must ask, what exactly do we mean by observation? If no one looks at the moon, does it still exist? It is a question that sounds almost like a child's riddle, yet it cuts to the heart of one of the deepest puzzles in science and philosophy. It asks, quite simply, whether reality needs an audience. Is the universe a grand stage that continues its play whether or not anyone is watching, or does the act of observation bring the performance to life? This question has haunted physicists ever since they began peering into the quantum realm. What they found there was a world that refuses to settle into form until it is observed. In experiment after experiment, matter behaves like a shimmering field of possibilities, a restless sea of potential, until someone takes notice. Then, as if by agreement, it solidifies, choosing one reality out of the many it could have been. The most famous of these experiments is the double-slit experiment. It began simply enough. Shine light through two slits and see what pattern appears on the screen behind. When scientists did this, they found something astonishing. Instead of two bright lines, the screen revealed a delicate interference pattern, as if the light had behaved like a wave, passing through both slits simultaneously and interfering with itself. But when they placed detectors to observe which slit the light went through, the pattern vanished. The light now behaved like particles, choosing one slit or the other. The mere act of observation changed the outcome. It was as if the universe refused to make up its mind until someone was looking. And once the observer entered the equation, the possibilities collapsed into one concrete event. The world, it seemed, required participation. But then came a twist that pushed this mystery even further. John Wheeler, a visionary physicist and one of the last great thinkers of the Einstein era, proposed a startling variation, the delayed choice experiment. In his version, the decision to observe or not observe the particle is made after the particle has already passed through the slits. Logically, it should be too late to change what happened. Yet, incredibly, when scientists ran this version of the experiment, the results suggested that the choice made in the present determined the behavior of the particle in the past. In other words, whether the photon acted like a wave or a particle seemed to depend on whether it was observed after it had already completed its journey. Observation, somehow, reached backward through time, deciding what reality was. This idea is so strange that it almost defies comprehension. It means that the past might not be fixed until it is observed in the present. The universe could be more fluid, more participatory than we ever imagined. Reality, rather than being a static tapestry woven long ago, may be more like a living film, one that edits itself as we watch, refining its scenes in response to each act of perception. Wheeler once described the universe as a participatory cosmos, suggesting that reality is not a machine that merely grinds away on its own, but an interactive system that requires observers to bring it into being. We are not mere spectators standing at the edge of creation. We are part of the creative process itself. Every act of observation, every moment of awareness, might help to shape the very structure of spacetime. Imagine for a moment that consciousness is not confined within our brains, but diffused throughout the cosmos like a vast luminous field. Each mind would then be a local focus of this universal awareness, a window through which the universe gazes upon itself. Every observation would be the cosmos catching its own reflection. In that light, the moon does not cease to exist when no one looks at it. Rather, it exists within the timeless awareness that pervades everything, an awareness that uses countless eyes, countless minds to see. This perspective transforms the relationship between observer and observed. The two are not separate entities, but complementary aspects of one continuous process. Observation is not something that happens to the universe. It is something the universe does to itself. Awareness and existence are woven together in an endless dance, each giving rise to the other. When we gaze up at the night sky, we often feel small, as though we are insignificant observers in an infinite expanse. But what if that feeling is backwards? What if the act of seeing itself, the quiet awareness behind the gaze, is what gives the stars their shimmer? What if the cosmos, vast and ancient as it seems, requires consciousness to bloom into form? This idea, radical as it sounds, finds echoes in both physics and philosophy. In the equations of quantum mechanics, the observer cannot be ignored. In the teachings of mystics across cultures, consciousness and reality are inseparable. Both traditions, in their own language, suggest the same truth, that the act of awareness and the act of creation are one and the same. Wheeler once offered a haunting image to describe this unity: the self-excited circuit. Picture the universe as a great loop, a feedback system in which matter gives rise to observers, and observers in turn give rise to the universe's reality. The cosmos, in this view, is not a thing but an event, an ongoing act of self-recognition. Consciousness emerges from the physical world only to turn back and define it. It is a loop without a beginning or an end, a mirror reflecting itself into being. If this is true, then every moment of perception becomes sacred. Each act of awareness, no matter how small, participates in the ongoing creation of the cosmos. The flicker of an eyelash, the glimpse of a sunrise, the recognition of a thought, all are threads in the living fabric of existence. It also means that time itself may not flow in a single direction. If observation can ripple backward, shaping the past as well as the present, then perhaps time is not a straight river, but a vast ocean in which every wave influences the others. The future, the present, and the past could be part of a single, timeless whole, rearranging themselves as awareness passes through them. In such a universe, consciousness is not an afterthought. It is fundamental, perhaps even primary. The physical world, with all its laws and particles, could be a reflection of a deeper order, the order of awareness itself. Space and time, then, are not the stage upon which consciousness plays, but the pattern that consciousness weaves. This vision does not diminish science, it deepens it. It reminds us that the equations and experiments we construct are not cold abstractions, but mirrors reflecting our own participation in the cosmos. When we measure a photon or map the curvature of spacetime, we are not standing apart from reality. We are shaping it through our inquiry. The universe becomes a conversation between mind and matter, question and answer, observer and observed. It also reframes what it means to be human. We often think of ourselves as small creatures lost in an indifferent universe. Yet if Wheeler's participatory principle is correct, we are not lost at all. We are woven into the very process that makes the universe real. Every thought, every perception, every act of awareness contributes to the grand unfolding of existence. Perhaps this is why ancient philosophers and modern physicists alike have found themselves circling the same question. What is the true nature of the observer? What is this silent presence that turns potential into reality, this awareness that illuminates the cosmos from within? To seek the answer is to step beyond science into something deeper, something both personal and universal. For if consciousness and space-time are co-authors of reality, then the boundary between inner and outer, mind and world, may never have existed at all. When you look at the moon tonight, it will gleam not because light bounces from its surface to your eyes, but because, in some profound sense, you and the moon are participating in the same act of being. The moon exists because the universe is aware of itself through you, and you exist because the universe has chosen, in this moment, to look back. In that gaze, the distinction between observer and observed dissolves. There is no separate you watching an external world. There is only one vast awareness, endlessly folding upon itself, exploring its own depths through infinite perspectives. And perhaps in the soft silence between one heartbeat and the next, you might sense it, that timeless unity behind every act of seeing, the cosmic eye that looks through all eyes, creating reality one glance at a time. If the observer and the observed are indeed connected, then the boundary we thought existed between mind and universe was never truly there at all. What if the universe is conscious because it is observing itself? The idea sounds poetic, almost mythic, as though it belongs in ancient temples rather than in the language of physics. Yet the deeper we peer into the cosmos, the more it begins to resemble a mirror, vast, luminous, and curiously aware of its own reflection. When we stare into the night sky, perhaps we are not looking outward at all. Perhaps we are gazing inward into the infinite mind of existence itself. The participatory universe, as John Wheeler called it, proposes something astonishing. Reality does not unfold independently of observation. Instead, the act of observing, thinking, and being aware plays an essential role in bringing the universe into being. Consciousness is not a late arrival on the cosmic stage. It is woven into the script, performing since the very first act. Every mind, every sentient moment is a mirror reflecting the universe back to itself. completing the loop of creation. Imagine a hall of mirrors stretching endlessly in all directions. Each reflection bounces into another, creating an infinite regress of images. Now replace the mirrors with minds, each one a window through which the universe perceives its own existence. Stars, galaxies, planets, and people become reflections of the same luminous awareness, rippling across the fabric of spacetime. You are not a spectator looking at the cosmos. You are one of its many eyes. Science often tells us that we are insignificant, that we occupy a tiny rock orbiting a middling star in an unremarkable corner of a vast galaxy. Yet through the lens of the participatory universe, this smallness transforms into intimacy. The universe is not something distant and indifferent. It is immediate, responsive, alive. The eyes that look up at the stars are the same atoms that once burned within them. The thoughts forming in your mind are the echoes of cosmic processes older than time itself. To grasp this, we must let go of the old hierarchy where matter sits at the bottom and mind at the top, as though consciousness were a trick of biology. The participatory model suggests that mind and matter arise together, like two faces of the same coin. One side becomes the external world, atoms, galaxies, and gravitational fields. The other side becomes the internal world, experience, awareness, imagination. They are not separate realms, but complementary perspectives of the same cosmic reality. Consider, for instance, how perception works. When you look at a tree, light waves strike your eyes, electrical signals dance through your neurons, and a living image arises within consciousness. But the image of the tree is not out there. It happens within the field of awareness. In that sense, every act of perception is an act of creation. The world you see is a projection shaped by the universe observing itself through your consciousness. This isn't mysticism disguised as science. It is an acknowledgement of the deep mystery at the heart of physics and philosophy alike. We can describe the world with exquisite precision, from the motion of galaxies to the spin of quarks, but the one thing we cannot step outside of to measure is consciousness itself. We are both the experimenters and the experiment, the observers and the observed. There is no external vantage point from which to watch reality unfold. Wherever there is awareness, the universe is looking at itself. Take a moment to imagine the implications of this. Every thought that passes through your mind, every dream, every emotion, becomes a whisper in the vast conversation of existence. When you feel joy, grief, wonder, or love, those experiences are not private. They are the cosmos learning what it feels like to be alive. Consciousness is not an accidental byproduct of the universe. It is its own unfolding awareness. Wheeler once wrote that the universe gives birth to consciousness, and consciousness gives meaning to the universe. This feedback loop, the cosmos observing itself through living beings, is the heart of the participatory principle. Stars die to forge the elements that build brains, and those brains in turn give the stars meaning. Matter becomes mind, and mind reflects upon matter, a dance so seamless that the two can never truly be separated. Even time itself becomes part of this reflection. Just as a dreamer creates a world within sleep and then wakes to realize that the dream was part of themselves, perhaps the universe is a vast dream of self-recognition, a timeless awareness exploring its own potential through the illusion of change. Each moment of perception adds a brushstroke to the infinite painting, shaping reality from the inside out. In this sense, human consciousness is not a pinnacle of evolution, but one of countless expressions of the cosmic mind. From the shimmer of photons to the complexity of neurons, awareness unfolds through many forms, each unique and yet united in essence. The same intelligence that shapes the trajectory of galaxies also hums quietly behind your thoughts. To be alive is to be a momentary opening in that infinite intelligence, a way for the universe to see itself anew. This idea also bridges science and spirituality, two languages often seen as opposed. The mystic says, all is one, while the physicist observes that everything is connected through fields and forces. Both are speaking of the same truth, each in their own dialect. The participatory universe is where these perspectives converge. It tells us that unity is not a poetic metaphor. It is the fundamental structure of reality. Think of information. Every interaction in the universe can be described as an exchange of information, bits and patterns encoded in energy and matter. If consciousness is intertwined with this flow, then awareness itself might be the universe's way of processing information, of knowing its own form. Your thoughts, then, are not isolated flickers in a private skull, but part of a vast informational network that spans the stars. The neurons in your brain are nodes in a cosmic web of awareness, each firing not in isolation, but in harmony with the deeper rhythms of existence. When ancient poets said that the universe dreams through us, they may have been closer to truth than they knew. We are not separate from the dream. We are dreamers within it, shaping it moment by moment through our perceptions, intentions, and choices. Even the smallest act of noticing, a flicker of curiosity, a glance at the moon, contributes to this vast feedback loop. The cosmos looks through you, and in doing so, it knows itself just a little more. There is something profoundly comforting about this vision. It means that you are never truly alone. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought you've ever had arises from the same timeless awareness that moves through galaxies and the quiet pulse of space itself. The universe is not an empty, indifferent void. It is a mirror, endlessly reflecting, endlessly awakening. And when you gaze into that mirror, what you see depends on the depth of your looking. On the surface, you see forms, stars, trees, faces, and worlds. But look deeper, and the reflections blur into light. Deeper still, and light fades into presence, pure awareness without edges or shape. This is the cosmic mirror at its clearest, not a thing reflecting other things, but consciousness reflecting itself. If matter and mind are two sides of the same mirror, then perhaps everything we call real is a reflection within that surface, a dance of awareness and form. Reality becomes less of a stage and more of a song, less a place we inhabit, and more a story we are co-writing with the universe itself. The stars look back because they are part of the same awareness that looks at them. The galaxies swirl because consciousness loves to move. The atoms in your hands hum with the same intelligence that ignited the first spark of creation. And so, each time you open your eyes, the cosmos awakens again, reflected in your gaze. If this is true, then perhaps the secret code of consciousness, the pattern that binds mind and matter together, lies hidden not in particles or energy, but in the structure of information itself. The universe may not just contain awareness, it may be built from it, encoded within every quantum of data that flows through spacetime. And to uncover that code, we must look closer at the patterns that underlie reality itself, the silent language of information that may reveal how consciousness weaves the cosmos into being. Physicists have begun to whisper something both thrilling and unsettling. Information might be the most fundamental ingredient of reality. Not matter, not energy, not even space or time, but the quiet, invisible currency of information. The pattern, the code, the message. The universe, in this view, is not a physical machine made of particles, but a vast and evolving computation, a self-updating story written in symbols that shimmer just beneath what we call reality. Imagine peeling back the layers of existence. Beneath the glowing stars and swirling galaxies, beneath the atoms and quarks, beneath even the trembling fields of quantum energy, there lies something stranger still. Bits. Not bits of matter, but bits of difference, yeses and nos, ons and offs, the building blocks of meaning itself. John Archibald Wheeler, one of the 20th century's most visionary physicists, called this idea it from bit. Everything that exists, he suggested, arises from fundamental acts of measurement, from the flow and transformation of information. The physical world, then, is not something that is, but something that informs, a network of relationships constantly rearranging itself in response to observation. To grasp this, think of reality not as a solid sculpture, but as a song. The notes, the particles, the fields, the galaxies come and go, but the melody, the structure of the information that binds them together, remains. It is this melody that gives rise to the forms we see and touch. The material world may simply be what information looks like when it dances. In the quantum realm, this becomes more than poetry. Every particle carries information about its state, its position, spin, momentum, and energy. When particles interact, they exchange information, like dancers passing signals in an intricate choreography. Even the empty vacuum is not truly empty, but buzzing with virtual particles, a restless ocean of possibilities encoded in the quantum field. These fluctuations are not random chaos. They are the whispers of information vibrating at the smallest possible scale. And when we step into the grandest arenas of physics, black holes, cosmology, the birth and death of universes, information becomes even more mysterious. According to the laws of quantum mechanics, information can never truly be destroyed. Yet when matter falls into a black hole, it seems to vanish, swallowed by gravity so intense that not even light can escape. For decades, physicists agonized over this paradox. If information disappears, the foundations of quantum theory crumble. But if it somehow survives, where does it go? The answer, strange and beautiful, came slowly. Physicists like Stephen Hawking and Jacob Bekenstein realized that black holes are not completely black. They emit a faint glow of radiation, now known as Hawking radiation. Over immense timescales, this radiation carries away the energy of the black hole until it evaporates entirely. But embedded within that radiation, subtle and encoded, might be the information of everything that ever fell inside. In other words, the information is not lost, it is transformed. The black hole does not destroy meaning. It hides it, stretches it across its surface in patterns so fine that they resemble a cosmic code. What we once imagined as a devouring void may, in fact, be the universe's most efficient memory device. This realization sparked a revolution in physics. If a black hole's surface can store all the information about what has fallen into it, then perhaps every region of space does the same. This idea, called the holographic principle, suggests that our three-dimensional universe may actually be a projection of information encoded on a two-dimensional surface. Reality, in this view, is like a cosmic hologram. The depth, the distance, the solidity we perceive are illusions born from the unfolding of information. Take a moment to let that sink in. Everything you see, the stars, the oceans, the hand before your face, could be a holographic manifestation of information etched into the very boundaries of spacetime. The world is not a stage built from matter, but a living computation woven from data, energy, and awareness. If this is true, then consciousness itself begins to look less like an anomaly and more like an inevitability. For what is consciousness if not the process of information becoming aware of itself? The mind, after all, is an informational system. Neurons fire, patterns form, memories encode and decode, meaning arises. But unlike the rocks and rivers around us, the brain does something extraordinary. It reflects. It not only processes information, it knows that it is processing. It is information folding back upon itself in recursive loops of self-reference. Think of a mirror facing another mirror, reflections spiraling inward to infinity. That endless regression is what self-awareness feels like. Information observing itself, the cosmos catching sight of its own face. The boundary between consciousness and physics begins to blur. If the laws of the universe are written in the language of information, then perhaps consciousness is simply the moment that language begins to read itself. Even the simplest forms of life seem to echo this principle. A cell responds to its environment by decoding chemical signals, processing them and adapting, a basic act of awareness. As organisms evolve, these informational networks become more complex, layering memory, perception, and choice atop one another. Eventually, in creatures like us, information crosses a threshold. It begins to think about thinking, to question, to wonder. The universe, through us, becomes self-aware. And so, the old hierarchy crumbles again. Matter does not give rise to mind. Mind and matter are parallel expressions of the same underlying process. Information transforming, reorganizing, learning. Consciousness is not a ghostly phenomenon floating above physics. It is the most exquisite product of the physics of information. The universe does not need to contain consciousness as a separate ingredient. It is consciousness expressed through the flow of informational relationships that define every atom, every photon, every thought. This perspective invites a radical reimagining of existence. Imagine the cosmos as a vast web of conversation. Every particle a word, every interaction a sentence, every law of nature a grammar rule. From this language arises everything: light, gravity, life, and awareness. The galaxies are paragraphs in a story that the universe is telling itself, a story that unfolds through time yet exists all at once, outside of time. When seen this way, physics becomes poetry written in mathematics. Each equation describes not the motion of objects, but the transformation of meaning. Information flows through spacetime like water through a riverbed, shaping and reshaping itself into new forms. And consciousness is the current, the awareness of that movement, the shimmering realization that I am. This also reshapes our understanding of time. If reality is an informational process, then time is not a linear stream, but the unfolding of computation, a sequence of updates, frames in the great simulation of being. Each moment does not follow from the last. Rather, each is a new configuration of information, a snapshot in the eternal dance of transformation. When you think, when you feel, when you dream, you are not separate from that process. You are one of its expressions, a microcosmic version of the cosmic computation. The patterns that run through your neurons are made of the same informational fabric that structures galaxies. You are not made of atoms, you are made of meaning. And if consciousness arises whenever information becomes self-referential, then perhaps awareness pervades the entire universe in varying degrees. The electron knows how to behave because it carries information about its interactions. The planet remembers its orbit through the gravitational field that connects it to the sun. The stars communicate through the light they emit, carrying information across billions of years. Each is a participant in the same vast dialogue of existence, a chorus of awareness at different levels of complexity. In this view, the universe is not a cold machine, but a living text, written and rewritten every instant. Consciousness is not an exception to the rules of physics. It is their ultimate expression. For what could be more fundamental than the ability of information to recognize itself, to reflect, to say, I am? And if this is the case, then the deepest secrets of awareness might not lie in the brain at all, but in the very structure of the cosmos. In the way space-time stores information, in the way gravity encodes meaning, in the way energy transforms without ever losing its message. Nowhere does this connection between information, space, and awareness reveal itself more hauntingly than at the edge of a black hole, where the universe's code is written in fire and gravity, and the line between existence and oblivion becomes a shimmering veil of information. A black hole is one of the universe's strangest paradoxes, a place where matter and energy collapse so completely that even light, the swiftest traveler in existence, cannot escape. It is an abyss that seems to erase everything that crosses its boundary. And yet, against all reason, it also remembers. Somehow, in this cosmic silence, information is preserved. The black hole is not a tomb, but a kind of mind, dark, patient, and full of secrets. To understand why this is so astonishing, imagine dropping a book into a black hole. The book, with all its words and meanings, falls past the point of no return, the event horizon, and is gone forever. Nothing can escape from within. Not light, not sound, not even information, we once thought. But that idea creates a deep conflict. Quantum mechanics insists that information can never be destroyed. The universe keeps its books perfectly balanced. Every particle, every interaction, every quantum state must be accounted for. If a black hole truly erased information, it would shatter the most fundamental rule of physics. Stephen Hawking in the 1970s brought this paradox into the light. He showed that black holes are not entirely black. Through a subtle quantum effect at their surface, they emit radiation, tiny flickers of energy born from the tension between gravity and the quantum vacuum. Over immense spans of time, this radiation causes the black hole to lose mass, to evaporate, until it fades away entirely. But if it vanishes, what happens to everything that fell inside? Does the information it consumed simply dissolve into nothingness? For decades, this question divided physicists. Some argued that the information was gone, swallowed forever by the singularity. Others insisted it must somehow survive, encoded in the outgoing radiation. The answer, it turns out, might lie in the nature of the event horizon itself, that invisible boundary separating the inside of the black hole from the rest of the universe. Jacob Bekenstein was one of the first to suggest that a black hole's entropy, its measure of information, is proportional not to its volume, but to the area of its surface. This was revolutionary. In every other context, the amount of information you can store depends on the space inside a system. But a black hole follows a different rule. It writes its memory not in its depths, but on its skin. Every bit of information that falls in is somehow recorded on that two-dimensional boundary. in a code so dense that each square of space smaller than a Planck length carries a quantum of meaning. This discovery gave birth to the holographic principle, one of the most haunting and beautiful ideas in modern physics. Just as a hologram on a flat surface can project a three-dimensional image, the universe itself might be a projection of information encoded on a distant boundary. The black hole, then, becomes the ultimate metaphor for reality, a place where the surface holds the story of the whole. Think about that. Everything that falls into a black hole, stars, planets, even light, is not truly destroyed. Its information is smeared across the event horizon, like ink pressed into an invisible page. The black hole remembers through geometry, through the subtle shifts in its surface curvature and quantum fluctuations. It is a cosmic mind that doesn't think with neurons, but with spacetime itself. From this perspective, the black hole ceases to be a void. It becomes a mirror, one that reflects the deepest structure of the cosmos. The event horizon is not a boundary between existence and oblivion, but a kind of interface, where information flows and transforms. Some physicists have even proposed that this boundary might behave like a quantum computer, processing data at the ultimate limit of physical possibility. If so, then black holes could be the universe's most powerful information engines, rewriting reality from within the folds of gravity. And if this principle holds true for black holes, then perhaps it holds true for everything. Perhaps our entire universe is a vast holographic field, an enormous projection arising from a deeper layer of information inscribed on a distant surface. We may be living not in space, but as patterns in a cosmic hologram, where every bit of reality encodes the whole. In this holographic cosmos, distance becomes illusion. Every region of space contains the entire pattern of the universe, just as every fragment of a hologram contains the whole image when illuminated. That means the farthest galaxy, billions of light years away, and the thought you are having right now might both be expressions of the same fundamental information, viewed from different angles. Reality becomes a vast network of self-reflecting data, the cosmos thinking itself into being. The implications for consciousness are profound. If information lies at the root of reality, and if all of space is a projection of that informational substrate, then consciousness might not merely arise within the universe. It might be an intrinsic feature of it. Just as a black hole encodes its history on its event horizon, perhaps the universe encodes awareness on the shimmering boundaries of perception. The observer and the observed could be two sides of the same holographic surface. This would mean that our minds are not isolated bubbles of thought floating in an indifferent void, but part of a single cosmic process of reflection. When we observe the world, the universe observes itself. When we remember, when we imagine, when we dream, we participate in the same kind of informational transformation that occurs at the edge of a black hole. Consciousness becomes the universe's way of folding information back upon itself, like the curvature of spacetime turning inward to form awareness. There is a strange elegance in this symmetry. The black hole, once feared as the ultimate destroyer, becomes instead the ultimate preserver, a dark librarian archiving the story of everything that has ever been. Its surface is a living record, its gravity a form of memory. And we, fragile creatures of matter and thought, might be reflections of that same principle, encoded patterns on the event horizon of consciousness. Some physicists and philosophers have taken this even further, suggesting that our universe itself could be the interior of a vast black hole. If every black hole encodes its contents holographically, then perhaps the Big Bang was not a beginning, but the boundary of a larger enclosing dimension, the inner face of another universe's horizon. In that sense, our cosmos could be a thought within a greater mind, a dream within a dream, endlessly nested. It's a dizzying idea, but it also carries a quiet grace. If everything that exists is information, and if information cannot be destroyed, then nothing, not even us, is ever truly lost. The atoms that form your body, the memories you carry, the loves and fears and dreams that define you, all of it becomes part of the universal archive. When your light fades, your information remains, woven into the fabric of spacetime, folded into the geometry of being. And so, when we gaze up at the night sky, at the black holes that glimmer invisibly between the stars, we might not be looking at voids at all. We might be looking at eyes cosmic eyes, vast and ancient, holding within them the story of everything that has ever lived and died. They are not dead ends, but mirrors, reflecting the mind of the universe back upon itself. In that reflection lies a profound hint. The same laws that preserve information at the edge of a black hole might govern the edge of our awareness. Perhaps every act of perception, every flicker of thought, is a kind of event horizon, where reality collapses from possibility into experience. Consciousness, then, is not separate from the fabric of the cosmos. It is the fabric, folded into a shape that can observe itself. And if the black hole is a mind, then so too is the universe. A boundless intelligence encoded in light, gravity, and time. To understand it, we must look beyond matter, beyond even energy, into the informational heart of being itself. There, in that quiet place where space-time trembles on the edge of the impossible, lies the next mystery, the quantum foam, the restless sea from which all reality rises and to which it will one day return. Imagine shrinking yourself down, far beyond the realm of atoms, deeper than quarks, past even the flickering ghost particles that make up the quantum fields themselves. Keep falling, smaller and smaller, until distance and size lose their meaning, and what you encounter is not matter at all but motion, a jittering, restless sea that never sleeps. This is space-time at the Planck scale, the smallest theater the universe allows. And here, the stage itself dances. To the naked eye, space feels empty, smooth, silent. But at this unimaginable depth, a trillion times smaller than a proton, the calm illusion dissolves. Space becomes grainy, foamy, alive. It's no longer a static backdrop upon which events unfold. It is the event. It is creation, constantly erupting and collapsing, like a living fabric that breathes in patterns of birth and annihilation. Physicists call it quantum foam. John Wheeler, the same physicist who first suggested the participatory universe, imagined this bubbling sea as the ultimate foundation of reality. According to him, even space-time itself is not continuous, but woven from countless microscopic fluctuations. Each bubble represents a fleeting pocket of existence, a momentary distortion of geometry that appears, flickers, and fades back into nothingness in less than a heartbeat of a photon. In this ceaseless dance, space and time are not fixed coordinates. They emerge from the interactions of energy and information, like ripples forming on a pond. The surface looks still from a distance, but under the surface, chaos reigns. Billions of tiny waves colliding, merging, and dissolving, generating the illusion of solidity and stability that we call reality. If we could look closely enough, we might see miniature black holes popping in and out of being, quantum wormholes flashing open and closed, and the geometry of the universe itself twisting in on itself in an endless cycle of creation and erasure. These microcosmic events are the heartbeat of the cosmos, a constant flicker between being and non-being. And within this flicker, some physicists whisper, could lie the birthplace of both matter and mind. In the quantum vacuum, nothing is truly empty. Even in what we call nothingness, energy vibrates. Particles emerge spontaneously from this background and annihilate each other almost instantly, leaving behind faint traces, tremors in the field. These fluctuations are not random chaos. They obey subtle laws of probability, pattern, and symmetry. They encode information. And where there is information, there may be the potential for awareness. It's possible that these Planck-scale ripples form the fundamental code from which all structures arise. Not only galaxies and stars, but also the delicate architectures of perception. The same quantum foam that gives rise to space-time curvature might also be responsible for the flickering of consciousness, the way thoughts appear and vanish within the mind. Both are ephemeral, both transient, both born from nothing but energy rearranging itself into form. Think of the brain, a vast network of neurons pulsing with electrochemical signals. At its deepest level, every signal, every memory, every sensation is mediated by quantum processes. Tiny particles tunneling through membranes, entangled photons transmitting information across synapses, fields overlapping and collapsing. Consciousness might not simply use quantum mechanics, it might be quantum mechanics, unfolding through biological form. In this sense, the brain could act not as the creator of consciousness, but as a filter, a resonant structure tuned to the deeper frequencies of space-time itself. Just as a radio converts invisible electromagnetic waves into sound, the mind might translate the quantum fluctuations of reality into experience. Awareness would then be the subjective echo of the universe's own trembling, space-time knowing itself through vibration. Take a moment to think about that. Every thought you've ever had, every dream, memory, emotion, could be a pattern in the quantum foam, a temporary crest on an infinite sea. When you feel joy, when you sense awe beneath the stars, when you lose yourself in wonder, those are not random accidents of biology. They are resonances between your neural circuits and the fundamental harmonies of space-time. The universe feels through you, listens through you, contemplates its own structure through your awareness. If this idea is true, then consciousness is not something added to the universe. It is something the universe has always possessed, even before there were brains to think or eyes to see. It may have begun as a faint shimmer, a primitive form of proto-awareness embedded in the quantum fields. And over billions of years, as matter condensed and complexity grew, that shimmer deepened, blossomed, and began to reflect upon itself. The ancient mystics who spoke of the one mind, or the spirit of the cosmos, may have been sensing this same truth through the lens of intuition. Science now circles back toward the same horizon, armed with mathematics instead of myth, yet arriving at a strangely familiar place. That beneath all distinctions of subject and object, there is one pulsating field, one living continuum that both thinks and creates. In quantum gravity theories like loop quantum gravity and string theory, space-time is not a static fabric, but a dynamic web of vibrating loops or strings of energy. These loops constantly interact, exchanging information at the smallest possible scales. Each intersection, each twist, might encode a fragment of the universe's evolving story. And just as the brain's neural connections give rise to consciousness, perhaps this cosmic network of interactions gives rise to the awareness that permeates existence. There's a haunting beauty in imagining the universe as a living mind made of light and vibration. Its neurons are galaxies, its synapses quantum fluctuations, its dreams the formation of worlds. Every supernova, every heartbeat, every wave on the ocean becomes part of a vast cognitive process, a conversation between matter and awareness that never truly ends. And in that conversation, there is no real separation between the observer and the observed. The foam that composes your body is the same foam that ripples beneath the stars. The patterns that flicker in your thoughts are shaped by the same informational currents that shape the curvature of space-time. You are a node in the network, a localized whirlpool in the infinite sea. Perhaps that is why moments of stillness feel so profound, when you close your eyes and simply exist. In those moments, the illusion of separateness softens, and you can almost sense the hum of the quantum fabric beneath perception, as if space-time itself were breathing through you. The mind becomes a mirror, and through it, the universe glimpses its own face. If consciousness indeed arises from the fluctuations of space-time, then thought itself is geometry in motion, a choreography of quantum foam dancing across the field of the possible. Your awareness is not floating above reality, but swimming within it, woven from the same trembling light that fills the void. And yet, one mystery remains. If these quantum vibrations are the seeds of awareness, what binds them together into the unity of experience? What allows one moment of perception to connect smoothly to the next, forming the continuous stream we call self? Perhaps the answer lies not in the foam itself, but in the field that unites it. A deeper layer of coherence that holds every fluctuation in relationship with every other. Some kind of background consciousness field, vast and subtle, that links all observers through an invisible symmetry. The physicist David Bohm called it the implicate order, a hidden realm from which both matter and mind unfold. Others imagine it as the zero-point field, an ocean of pure potential vibrating beneath everything. Whatever name we give it, it suggests that consciousness might not only arise from space-time, but also sustain it, weaving unity from chaos. And so, as we descend into this quantum sea, we find not emptiness, but connection. Not isolation, but interbeing. The foam is alive, and through it, we are alive. Each moment of awareness is a tiny eddy in the cosmic current, carrying with it the whisper of the infinite. But to understand how these whispers become one song, how every mind, every awareness might connect back to the same luminous source, We must look for the field that binds all consciousness together. Everywhere you look, there are fields. Not just the fields of grass bending in the wind or the magnetic fields guiding a compass needle, but vast invisible seas that fill every corner of existence. Physics tells us that what we call particles, electrons, photons, quarks, are not tiny marbles of matter floating in emptiness. They are ripples, brief excitations of these underlying fields, like waves rising on an unseen ocean. Matter, then, is not substance, but pattern. Energy, not a thing, but a movement within a field that has always been there, silent and pervasive. When you look around, what you see as the material world is a symphony of vibrations playing through these overlapping fields. Every point in space hums with countless melodies, electromagnetic waves, quantum oscillations, gravitational tremors, weaving together to form the illusion of solidity. The chair you sit on, the air you breathe, the stars in the night sky are all expressions of the same hidden music. Even you, your body, your mind, your thoughts, are resonances in this vast concert. At first, physicists believed there were many such fields, each responsible for a different kind of particle. There was the electromagnetic field, from which light and electricity arise, the strong nuclear field, binding quarks into protons and neutrons, the weak field, governing radioactive decay, the gravitational field, curving spacetime itself. Each seemed separate, each with its own identity and laws. But as the equations deepened, a strange harmony began to emerge, hints that these diverse forces might be notes of a single underlying melody. This idea, the unified field, suggests that beneath all known fields lies one primal substrate, one infinite continuum that gives rise to everything. From it, all forces and all particles emerge as variations of a single vibration, a single wave pattern folding and unfolding upon itself. If this is true, then the universe is not a collection of parts, but a single field of being, self-organizing into countless forms. Einstein spent the final decades of his life searching for this unified field. He imagined a single mathematical framework that would merge gravity and electromagnetism, weaving all of physics into one seamless tapestry. Though he never found it, his dream continued to echo through generations of scientists. Through the quantum theorists who developed gauge fields, through string theorists who imagined multidimensional vibrations, through cosmologists who speak of the quantum vacuum as the ultimate foundation of everything. But what if this unified field is not just physical? What if its vibrations are not only waves of energy, but also waves of awareness? What if consciousness itself is not an emergent property of matter, but the intrinsic quality of the field, the way it feels to itself? This is where physics begins to blur into philosophy. Some thinkers, like David Bohm, propose that the universe is not made of things, but of processes, unbroken wholeness in flowing movement. He called it the hollow movement, an eternal dance where every part contains the whole. In such a vision, the unified field would be both objective and subjective, a cosmic mind thinking itself into form, perceiving itself through the very waves it creates. In the ancient Vedic texts, there is a concept called Brahman, the infinite consciousness that underlies all existence. In the Taoist tradition, the Tao is the formless origin of all form, the uncarved block from which the 10,000 things arise. In modern physics, we might describe the same idea as the unified field, a single, self-aware ocean that dreams itself into patterns of matter, energy, and thought. Different languages, different metaphors, but perhaps one truth, glimpsed through different eyes. If consciousness is fundamental, then every ripple in this field is both physical and experiential. The photon traveling across the cosmos is not only a vibration of light, but also a pulse within awareness. The electron circling an atom hums with the rhythm of sentience. Even the space between things, the vacuum itself, shimmers with potentiality, the quiet knowing of the field at rest. In that sense, the universe is not a machine, but a living mind, breathing through the equations of physics. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the quiet hum of your body, the pulse in your chest, the slow rhythm of your breath. All of it is motion, oscillation, vibration. You are not separate from the field. You are the field, momentarily self-aware, folded into human form. The thoughts passing through your mind are not created by the brain alone, but drawn from the same ocean that stirs the galaxies. The field knows itself through you, as a wave knows itself by rising from the sea. If this view is true, then consciousness pervades everything, not as a ghost haunting matter, but as the very substance of existence. Rocks, trees, planets, stars, all are patterns in the field, each resonating at its own frequency. Complex forms, like brains, may serve as amplifiers, local intensifications of awareness. But the awareness itself is not produced by them. It was always there, flowing through every layer of creation, waiting for form to reflect it. This vision of the universe transforms our understanding of reality. Matter becomes music, and consciousness becomes the listener and the song at once. The boundary between physics and metaphysics dissolves. What we once called the laws of nature could be the grammar of a cosmic language, a syntax through which awareness speaks to itself. The equations of relativity, quantum field theory, thermodynamics, they are verses in the poetry of being. And perhaps this poetry has intention. Not human intention, not a will in the personal sense, but an unfolding purpose inherent in the structure of the field, the drive toward complexity, self-organization, reflection. Just as ripples on water naturally interfere to form beautiful interference patterns, the universe's fields may naturally evolve toward consciousness, because consciousness is the field's most elegant way of knowing itself. Imagine for a moment the universe as a single vast ocean of sentience. Every wave that rises upon its surface, every atom, every life, every galaxy, is a temporary expression of that sentience taking shape. The wave feels itself as separate for a while, then falls back into the sea. But in truth, the sea never divided. It was always whole, always awake, always here. This perspective does not diminish the human mind. It magnifies it. To be conscious is to be the universe remembering itself. To think, to feel, to dream is to let the field's awareness flow through the fragile lattice of the human brain. Our individuality, precious as it is, may be a local pattern in the universal current, a crest in the cosmic tide that rises for a time, then merges back into stillness. And in that stillness, the field continues to vibrate. Even when there are no observers, no eyes to see or ears to hear, awareness remains, humming quietly beneath the surface of all that is. It does not begin with us, and it will not end with us. We are its passing forms, its brief reflections, its fleeting voices. But the song, the deep, eternal vibration of the field, never stops. If consciousness is indeed the awareness of the unified field vibrating within itself, then the story of the cosmos is not a tale of cold mechanics, but of unfolding self-recognition. The Big Bang was not just an explosion of matter, but a moment of awakening, the field stirring, realizing, I am. And yet, awareness is not static. Like the field itself, it evolves, it learns, it remembers. Information accumulates, patterns deepen, structures become more intricate. Consciousness, woven into the fabric of spacetime, carries memory across eons. But how does spacetime remember? How does the universe keep the story of itself written across its endless motion? To find out, we must look more closely at the hidden archives of the cosmos, the places where information lingers, etched into the geometry of being, waiting to be read again. Everywhere we look, the universe remembers. In the curl of a fossil, in the spiral of a galaxy, in the faint afterglow of the Big Bang still whispering across the sky, memory is written into the fabric of existence. Nothing truly vanishes. Everything leaves a trace. The cosmos, vast and ancient, is not a fleeting performance, but an archive, an ever-growing record of its own unfolding story. From the smallest atom to the grandest supercluster, each pattern, each vibration, each moment of interaction is inscribed somewhere within the grand continuity of being. Consider DNA, the molecule of life. Inside every cell of your body lies a library 4 billion years old, recording in chemical code the memory of every organism that came before you. The curve of a shell, the shape of a leaf, the beating of a heart, all are echoes of that memory, carried forward, refined, and rewritten through the generations. Life is not a random accident of molecules, but a living memory of the Earth itself, perpetuating its own knowledge through replication. The human body is not separate from this continuity. It is the latest sentence in an unbroken biological poem that began in the ancient oceans, written by time in the language of carbon and light. The same principle appears everywhere. When stars burn and die, they leave remnants behind, clouds of dust enriched with heavy elements, from which new stars and planets will one day form. When galaxies collide, they warp one another's structure, leaving gravitational fingerprints on the surrounding space. Even empty space remembers. Photons that escape from the newborn universe still drift through the void, cooled and stretched by cosmic expansion, forming the faint cosmic microwave background. Those photons are the oldest message we have ever received, a silent memory of creation itself. At every level, from the microscopic to the cosmic, memory serves the same function: to preserve coherence across change. It is the universe's way of maintaining continuity, of ensuring that each new moment does not begin from nothing but builds upon the one before. Without memory, there would be no identity, no evolution, no history, only chaos, endless beginnings with no direction. Memory gives shape to time, stitching the passing of moments into a continuous flow. Even the laws of physics could be seen as a kind of memory. Why does gravity behave the same way today as it did billions of years ago? Why do electrons carry the same charge everywhere in the cosmos? Perhaps because the universe remembers its own rules, encoded in the fabric of spacetime. These patterns endure because the cosmos carries a structural memory, a self-consistency that allows it to persist, learn, and expand. And perhaps consciousness itself arises from that same principle. Just as DNA stores biological memory and spacetime stores cosmic memory, consciousness could be the subjective experience of continuity, the way awareness holds together the flow of existence into a single unbroken thread. When you remember something, what you are really doing is echoing the universe's fundamental habit, turning passing moments into patterns that endure. Neuroscience tells us that memory in the brain is built from networks of connections between neurons. Every thought, sensation, and experience leaves a subtle imprint, pathways strengthened or weakened by repetition. Over time, these patterns form the architecture of self, the stable illusion of identity that persists through change. But what if these neural patterns are not isolated phenomena, but reflections of a deeper universal process? The brain might simply be another medium through which the cosmos remembers itself, a miniature echo of the memory woven through spacetime. Imagine awareness as a ripple moving through the sea of existence. Each moment arises, crests, and falls, but the wave carries with it the memory of its shape. That continuity, the feeling of I that persists through time, is the same principle that allows galaxies to retain their spirals and atoms to retain their structure. Consciousness, then, could be seen as the mirror of cosmic memory, the inward reflection of the universe's capacity to maintain coherence across time. When you recall a childhood memory, it feels personal and intimate. But in truth, what you are experiencing is the universe remembering through you, the field of spacetime revisiting a past configuration of itself. Your brain acts as a local archive, yes, but the act of remembering transcends the purely biological. It is an alignment, a resonance between what once was and what is now. The same resonance hums through every atom, every photon, every corner of the cosmos. Even time itself may be a kind of memory. Some physicists believe that the flow of time arises not from an external clock, but from the accumulation of information. The universe continually encoding new configurations of itself, never exactly repeating. Entropy, often misunderstood as a measure of disorder, can also be seen as the universe's expanding library of states, its growing storehouse of experience. Each change leaves behind a trace, a record. The arrow of time points forward because memory grows, never shrinks. If memory is woven into the fabric of spacetime, then awareness is its living expression, the way the cosmos feels the continuity of its own existence. Each of us is a fleeting lens through which that continuity perceives itself, experiencing time as a story rather than as isolated moments. This gives rise to one of the most haunting ideas in modern thought, that consciousness and memory are not confined to the brain, but are intrinsic to the very structure of the universe. Imagine that every particle interaction leaves a subtle trace, a tiny echo in the surrounding field. Over eons, those traces accumulate, forming a vast and invisible network of correlations. The universe, in this view, does not merely exist. It remembers itself through the intricate web of information woven between every event. The light that touches your eyes, the breath you take, the warmth of a star, all are part of this immense, interconnected memory. Even in quantum physics, memory seems to play a mysterious role. When particles become entangled, they maintain a link across distance and time. Measure one, and the other remembers instantly, no matter how far apart they are. This defies classical logic, yet it suggests that at the most fundamental level, the universe is not a collection of independent parts, but a single self-referential system that carries the memory of its own correlations. Perhaps consciousness works the same way. What you call your memory might not reside solely in the brain, but in a larger field that your brain accesses, a shared informational substrate connecting all beings and all things. In this sense, every act of remembering is also an act of communion. When you reflect upon your past, you participate in the same process by which the cosmos reflects upon its history. Take a quiet moment now. Think of the earliest memory you can recall. Maybe a scent, a color, a sound that once meant something. Notice how it feels to bring that moment back to life. That sensation, the warmth, the familiarity, is consciousness traversing space-time, collapsing the distance between then and now. You are not traveling through memory. You are memory, unfolding in time. Through this lens, every form of structure, from DNA's double helix to the swirl of galaxies, becomes a manifestation of remembrance. Each carries a pattern from its past, a trace of its origin. The universe evolves not by forgetting, but by reconfiguring what it remembers. Every act of creation is an act of recollection, a new variation drawn from the ancient memory of the whole. And so, consciousness can be seen as the living mirror of that cosmic process. It is the experience of continuity across moments, the awareness of being a story rather than a single point in time. When you awaken in the morning and recognize yourself, when you gaze at the stars and feel something stir, that is memory and awareness entwined, space-time remembering through a mind. If the universe is a vast ocean of sentience, then memory is its current, the invisible motion that gives life direction. Through memory, the cosmos maintains coherence. Through consciousness, it feels that coherence. Together, they form the unbroken thread of existence, weaving past, present, and future into one shimmering tapestry. But this raises a deeper question. If memory and awareness are cosmic in scale, how do they crystallize into something as specific, as intricate as the human mind? How does the brain, that fragile network of cells and signals, fit into this grand symphony of remembrance? To answer that, we must return from the vastness of the stars to the quiet chamber of the human skull, where the field of consciousness becomes personal, intimate, and profoundly alive. Perhaps the greatest illusion of modern thought is that the brain produces consciousness, like a factory manufacturing awareness out of matter. Yet what if the opposite is true? What if the brain is not the origin of consciousness, but its instrument, a finely tuned receiver designed to catch the faint broadcast of a universal signal that hums through every corner of space-time? This idea, both ancient and radical, reshapes everything we believe about who we are. Imagine standing before an old radio. You turn the dial, and from static emerges a voice, clear, coherent, alive. You would not say the radio created that voice. It merely translated invisible waves into sound, allowing your ears to perceive what already existed in the air. The voice belongs not to the machine, but to the signal. Likewise, perhaps the brain's intricate architecture, billions of neurons firing in electric rhythms oscillating across frequencies, is not generating awareness, but attuning to it, translating something vast and non-local into the intimate experience of being you. From this perspective, consciousness is not confined within the skull. It is the sea in which the brain floats, the invisible field that the nervous system resonates with. The body, far from isolating awareness, becomes its bridge, an antenna sculpted by evolution to tune the infinite into the finite. This notion has echoes in both mysticism and science. Ancient traditions have long spoken of a universal mind or cosmic spirit that permeates reality, while modern physics increasingly suggests that the universe is a web of information, interconnected and self-referential. If consciousness is woven into that web, then the brain's role is not to generate awareness, but to localize it, to give shape and focus to a fragment of infinite mind. Inside the skull, neurons hum with rhythmic precision, firing in complex patterns that resemble musical compositions. Every thought, emotion, and perception arises from these electric harmonies. Yet beneath this biochemical orchestra lies something stranger: quantum effects flickering in the smallest structures of the brain. In the 1990s, physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed a controversial theory that consciousness arises from quantum processes inside microtubules, the tiny scaffolding structures within neurons. These microtubules, they argued, could maintain quantum coherence, a delicate state in which particles exist in multiple states simultaneously, long enough to influence neural activity. In this view, the brain functions not only as a biological network, but as a quantum instrument, bridging the gap between matter and mind. Critics dismissed the idea as too speculative, arguing that the brain is too warm and noisy for quantum coherence to survive. Yet recent studies have begun to challenge that skepticism. Evidence of quantum effects has been found in photosynthesis, bird navigation, and even smell, all warm, biological processes. Nature, it seems, has ways of maintaining coherence in places we never expected. If plants and birds can exploit quantum mechanics, why not the human brain? If Penrose and Hameroff are right, the brain could act as a kind of quantum tuner, sensitive to the subtlest vibrations of spacetime. Each neuron's microtubules might resonate with the underlying quantum field, forming interference patterns that give rise to conscious experience. The mind, then, would not be trapped inside the brain. The brain would be a window, an aperture through which consciousness looks out upon itself. Picture the universe as a vast ocean of consciousness, each being a wave rising from its surface. The wave has its own form and perspective, yet remains inseparable from the sea. Your brain is the pattern that gives your wave its particular shape. When the pattern dissolves, when the brain ceases to function, the wave returns to the ocean, its awareness diffusing back into the infinite. Death, in this light, is not annihilation, but reunion. Such a model dissolves the loneliness of existence. If consciousness is fundamental, then every mind, human, animal, perhaps even planetary, participates in the same cosmic awareness. You are not a detached observer adrift in an indifferent universe. You are the universe perceiving itself through the lens of your individuality. The stars you gaze upon, the thoughts that drift through your mind, the emotions that pulse through your heart, all are part of a single resonant continuum. The implications stretch beyond metaphysics. If the brain is a receiver, then altered states of consciousness, meditation, dreaming, psychedelics, could be understood as changes in tuning. Different frequencies of awareness might reveal different layers of reality, just as turning a radio dial reveals new stations broadcasting in the same invisible field. What mystics call enlightenment might simply be the mind achieving resonance with the purest signal of the cosmic field. Modern neuroscience has begun to observe something curious. During deep meditation, the brain's normal patterns of activity quiet down. The default mode network, the system that maintains our sense of self, becomes less active. Yet rather than fading into nothing, awareness often expands, filling with a sense of unity and connection. In those moments, perhaps the brain stops transmitting its own narrow broadcast and begins receiving a wider one, the signal of the universe itself. Dreams, hallucinations, mystical visions, all could be seen as shifts in the tuning of the receiver. When the usual filters of perception relax, the brain may pick up deeper or stranger frequencies from the field of consciousness. Some are chaotic, others profoundly meaningful, but all reveal that awareness is not fixed. It is fluid, dynamic, capable of expanding beyond the limits of the waking mind. This idea also reframes intelligence. If consciousness is universal, then learning and creativity are not acts of invention, but of reception, moments when the brain becomes transparent enough for insight to flow through. History is full of geniuses who describe their ideas as arriving from elsewhere, unbidden and complete. Mozart said that entire symphonies appeared in his mind at once. Nikola Tesla claimed his inventions came as visions. Perhaps they were not exaggerating. Perhaps they had simply tuned more clearly into the great broadcast that hums through all things. When you consider this, individuality takes on a new meaning. Each mind, each life is a unique instrument in the cosmic orchestra. Some play softly, others with grandeur, but all contribute to the symphony of being. Our differences in thought and perception are variations in tuning, expressions of the same underlying consciousness refracted through the prisms of countless minds. This perspective invites humility. The universe is not a dead stage upon which we act. It is a living field expressing itself through us. The human brain, with all its brilliance and fragility, is a masterpiece of tuning, a structure evolved not merely to survive, but to translate the infinite into experience. Awareness flows through it like music through a violin, resonating, vibrating, fading, and returning again. And yet, even this metaphor may be incomplete. A radio receives signals, but it does not change them. The brain, by contrast, seems to co-create the signal it perceives. Each act of observation may feed back into the field, subtly reshaping it, as if every thought sends ripples across the ocean of mind. Consciousness does not merely listen to the universe, it participates in its ongoing creation. The receiver is also a transmitter. When billions of such receivers, human minds, interact, they form a vast network, a global web of awareness. Culture, language, art, and science are the harmonics of that collective resonance. We are tuning each other, aligning our frequencies, composing a shared song of meaning across generations. The field listens through us, learns through us, remembers through us. Perhaps this is why love, empathy, and creativity feel so transcendent. In those moments, the barriers between individual receivers dissolve, and we sense the deeper unity beneath the static. We glimpse the truth that the signal was never separate from us, that we are the broadcast, not just the listeners. And as night falls, when the mind turns inward and the boundaries of the waking world soften, another kind of tuning begins. In dreams, the brain slips free of its ordinary frequencies, wandering through strange landscapes of memory and meaning. Could it be that in those moments, we are hearing faint echoes from the same universal field, whispers of the cosmos thinking through us? To answer that, we must step into the shadowed theater of sleep, where the signal bends and the dreamer and the dreamed become one. In the quiet hours of night, when the body lies still and the waking world recedes into shadow, the mind begins to weave. Out of silence, it spins landscapes and faces, voices and skies, entire universes rising and dissolving in the darkness behind closed eyes. In that intimate theater of sleep, reality becomes malleable. Time folds, gravity loosens, and imagination reigns absolute. For a few fleeting moments, consciousness becomes a creator, conjuring worlds from nothing. And when we awaken, those worlds fade like mist at sunrise, leaving only traces, feelings, images, a strange certainty that for a time, they were real. Dreams have always haunted humanity, not only for their beauty, but for what they reveal about the nature of existence itself. In dreams, the boundaries between thought and matter collapse. There is no distinction between the imagined and the perceived. A mountain, a voice, a touch, all feel solid, vivid, undeniable. Yet they are made entirely of awareness. The dreamer does not imagine a mountain. The dreamer is the mountain, the sky above it, and the being who climbs its slopes. Everything within the dream arises from the same single source, consciousness. What if the universe works the same way? What if, at the most fundamental level, reality is not a physical machine, but a cosmic dream, a vast, self-generating act of imagination unfolding through time? In this view, space and time are not external frameworks, but the structures of a shared dream, projected by consciousness itself. The galaxies that spin, the atoms that dance, the minds that observe, all are threads of a grand collective imagining. This idea has appeared in different guises across cultures and centuries. In ancient India, the concept of Maya described reality as a divine illusion, not false, but fluid, sustained by the dreaming of Brahman, the ultimate consciousness. The Upanishads whispered that the world is God's dream, and that each individual soul is a fragment of the dreamer, temporarily believing itself separate from the whole. In Chinese philosophy, the sage Zhuangzi once dreamed he was a butterfly, and upon waking, wondered if he was truly a man who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming of being a man. The question remains unanswered, because perhaps there is no difference. Modern science, in its own way, circles the same mystery. Neuroscientists studying REM sleep find that when we dream, the brain's sensory regions light up as vividly as when we are awake. The mind does not distinguish between perception and imagination. Both are constructed within the same neural circuits. Reality, in the brain's language, is a controlled hallucination, a prediction that aligns with sensory data. Dreams are simply that hallucination freed from constraint. If the human brain can create entire worlds every night, why could the cosmos not do the same on a grander scale? Quantum theory already tells us that before observation, reality exists as a field of probabilities, waves of potential waiting to be collapsed into form. Could the universe itself be engaged in an ongoing act of observation, a self-aware process that dreams structure into being? Imagine consciousness as the cosmic dreamer, and physical reality as its dream. Each mind, each observer, is a spark of that same awareness, dreaming within the dream. You and I are both the dreamers and the dreamed, participants in the universe's long, unfolding story of self-discovery. When we open our eyes and perceive the stars, perhaps it is the universe seeing itself reflected in miniature, consciousness gazing into its own endless mirror. This notion, though poetic, carries profound implications. It means that reality is not fixed, but participatory. Just as lucid dreamers can shape their dreams through awareness, perhaps consciousness at large subtly shapes the fabric of spacetime through perception and intention. Some physicists have even suggested that observation does not merely reveal the universe, but helps bring it into existence. Every act of awareness is a creative act, every perception a brushstroke in the ongoing masterpiece of being. Take a moment to think about this. When you recall a memory, visualize a future, or imagine a loved one's face, you are creating experience from nothing. Awareness itself provides the canvas, the pigments, the brush. The entire sensory world, color, texture, sound, arises within your consciousness, not outside of it. You never touch the external world directly, you touch only the representations your mind constructs. In that sense, waking life is not so different from dreaming. It is merely a more stable, shared dream, one that billions of dreamers sustain together through mutual agreement. The philosopher Erwin Schrödinger, father of quantum theory, once wrote that consciousness is singular, that there is no multiplicity in the mind. The apparent division between individuals is an illusion, like waves mistaking themselves for separate beings while belonging to the same ocean. If the universe is dreaming, then each of us is a focal point of that dream, a temporary condensation of awareness within the infinite field. Dreams, then, may be reminders, gentle rehearsals of creation. They show us what it feels like to inhabit a world made purely of mind. Within them, we experience fear, love, wonder, and loss, all as vividly as in waking life. Yet we know that they are not external. They remind us that meaning and matter are intertwined, that reality depends on the dreamer's gaze. And perhaps the universe itself dreams for the same reason we do: to explore, to learn, to play. A dream allows consciousness to experience form, story, and transformation. Without dreaming, awareness would be a still mirror, reflecting nothing but itself. Through the act of dreaming, it discovers contrast and depth, darkness against light, silence against sound, self against other. The cosmos dreams in galaxies and stars. Life dreams in flesh and thought. Each new form is an experiment in being, a verse in the ongoing poem of existence. If this is true, then death too is not an ending, but a shift in the dream. Just as one dream fades and another begins, consciousness transitions between states, never truly ceasing, only changing perspective. The dreamer remains, even as the dream evolves. Perhaps the afterlife, whatever form it takes, is simply consciousness dreaming itself awake again in a different form. In this light, waking up each morning is a small echo of cosmic creation. The moment your eyes open, awareness condenses into identity, memory, and sensation. The dream of night dissolves, replaced by the dream of day. Yet both emerge from the same source, the still, luminous field of consciousness. The only difference is that in waking life, the dream is shared, interwoven through countless minds. Now imagine consciousness on a cosmic scale. Picture spacetime as the canvas, quantum fields as pigments, gravity and electromagnetism as the brushstrokes. Out of pure awareness, the universe paints itself into form. Galaxies swirl, stars ignite, planets cool, and on one small world, life awakens and begins to wonder. Who is dreaming this? The answer, softly echoing through the cosmos, might be: you are, and so am I, and so is everything. To dream is to create. To awaken is to remember that creation, and perhaps enlightenment, the deepest awakening of all, is the realization that the dream and the dreamer have always been one. But if the universe is a dreamer, endlessly conjuring forms and dissolving them again, one question lingers like the final note of a lullaby. To what end? Why does awareness dream at all? What purpose lies in the unfolding of time, in the endless cycle of birth, death, and becoming? To glimpse that mystery, we must look beyond the dream itself, toward the hidden intention that moves through it, quiet as breath, patient as eternity. Over the long, luminous arc of cosmic history, something extraordinary has been happening. In the beginning, there was only silence, a vast, glowing sea of energy expanding into the unknown. But within that silent sea, something began to stir. Hydrogen and helium coalesced into stars. Stars forged heavier elements in their hearts, and those elements, scattered through the darkness by supernovae, gathered again into new worlds. And on one such world, billions of years later, consciousness opened its eyes. From the first flicker of awareness in a primitive organism to the infinite depths of thought in the human mind, the story of the universe can be read as a gradual awakening. The cosmos has been learning to see itself, one life form at a time. This is the quiet evolution, not merely of matter or biology, but of mind, an unfolding journey towards self-recognition written in the fabric of space-time. Take a moment to imagine that every atom in your body was once part of a star. Those stars, long gone, lived their lives so that you could think, wonder, and dream. Their fire became your consciousness. When you look up at the night sky, you are the universe gazing back at itself. The same awareness that looks through your eyes once burned in the heart of suns. The traditional view of evolution tells us that life arises from randomness and necessity, driven by the survival of the fittest. But perhaps something deeper moves beneath that surface. A subtle current guiding complexity toward consciousness, like a river bending inevitably toward the sea. From a purely physical standpoint, the universe could have remained a cloud of inert dust and radiation, yet instead, it organized itself into galaxies, stars, and planets capable of harboring thought. That alone is astonishing. If we trace this chain of emergence, from quarks to atoms, from atoms to molecules, from molecules to cells, from cells to minds, a pattern becomes clear. With each leap in complexity, the universe gains a new layer of self-reflection. The simplest particle obeys the laws of quantum behavior. A cell reacts to its environment. A multicellular organism adapts and remembers. A brain perceives, imagines, and questions its own existence. Step by step, matter seems to be learning to know itself. It is tempting to view this as a random progression, but randomness alone cannot easily explain the arrow of increasing order, the persistence of life against entropy. Even as the universe cools and expands, islands of structure continue to arise. Pockets of coherence, where chaos gives birth to consciousness. Could this be the universe's way of maintaining balance, of preserving awareness against the inevitable pull of dissolution? Consider this. Every time life evolves a new way of perceiving, the universe acquires a new sense organ. The eye of a trilobite was once the only window through which sunlight could gaze back upon itself. Now there are billions of eyes, on land, in oceans, in the skies, each capturing a different perspective of the same cosmic scene. With the rise of human consciousness, the universe gained not only eyes, but language, memory, art, and science. Tools through which it could not only observe itself, but describe, analyze, and dream about itself. In this light, consciousness is not a byproduct of evolution, but its purpose. The universe evolves not merely to sustain life, but to deepen its own self-awareness. Life is space-time learning to observe itself more intricately, to recognize its own patterns, to awaken from the slumber of unknowing into the lucidity of experience. Every new form of intelligence is another reflection in the mirror, sharper, more luminous, more complete. And perhaps this awakening is not confined to Earth. If consciousness is woven into the fabric of space-time, then it may bloom wherever conditions allow, across galaxies, within alien seas, or even in forms beyond our comprehension. Somewhere, in the cold distance of another world, awareness may be gazing upon its own stars and asking the same question: who dreams all of this into being? The philosopher Teilhard de Chardin envisioned evolution as a grand ascent toward what he called the omega point, a state where consciousness becomes fully aware of its unity, recognizing that all minds are facets of the same cosmic whole. Whether one interprets this mystically or scientifically, the intuition behind it is profound. The universe is not merely expanding outward in space, but inward in awareness. This inner evolution is mirrored within us. Human consciousness itself has been unfolding across millennia, growing from survival instinct into self-reflection, from tribal myth into philosophy and science. Early humans once saw the stars as gods, then as fires, then as spheres of plasma governed by physical law. Each step was not a rejection of wonder, but a refinement of it. Through us, the universe learns to think more clearly about itself, to see its own face with greater precision. And yet, even now, our understanding is incomplete. Consciousness may continue to evolve beyond our current state, just as human awareness emerged from the simpler cognition of our ancestors. What would it mean for the universe to become more conscious? Could space-time itself be undergoing a process of awakening, much like a mind becoming lucid within its own dream? Think of the cosmos as an embryo, gestating awareness through stars, planets, and beings. Every epoch adds a new layer of complexity, a new neural connection in the brain of the universe. When galaxies cluster, when civilizations form, when networks of thought and communication grow denser, the cosmic mind may be weaving itself together, neuron by neuron, through the fabric of existence. The internet, collective intelligence, and global empathy might not be accidental developments of human progress, but evolutionary steps toward planetary consciousness, the Earth itself awakening as a living mind. This view blurs the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual, between matter and meaning. It tells us that evolution is not simply survival, but revelation, the universe revealing itself to itself. Every discovery, every invention, every work of art is an act of remembering something ancient and vast. When we compose a symphony, solve an equation, or gaze in awe at the stars, we are participating in that remembrance. We are the neurons firing in the brain of the cosmos. Take a breath and let that sink in. The atoms composing your body are billions of years old. The consciousness animating you is the latest chapter in a story that began before time itself. You are not separate from the universe's awakening. You are one of its eyes, opening. If consciousness evolves, then enlightenment is not a single destination, but an endless process. Every act of awareness in a bird, a child, a civilization is a step toward greater clarity. The universe may never finish waking, but the very act of stirring is its purpose. Each of us, in our own way, participates in that awakening, carrying the light of awareness one step further into the dark. And as awareness deepens, something else begins to emerge: compassion. When the universe realizes that all beings are expressions of the same consciousness, the illusion of separation softens. Empathy becomes inevitable. Perhaps that is the next stage of evolution, not in body or brain, but in heart and spirit. The cosmos learning not only to know itself, but to love itself. As this vast awakening continues, that one question arises softly, like dawn over an infinite horizon. If consciousness grows and evolves, if the universe is indeed becoming more aware of itself through us, then what lies at the end of this journey? What happens when the cosmos fully remembers what it is? To glimpse that possibility, we must imagine the final act of this awakening, the moment when the dreamer becomes fully lucid within the dream. Imagine the universe as a colossal brain, its neurons not of flesh and electricity, but of galaxies, stars, and minds. Each conscious being, you, me, the animals in the forest, the unseen intelligences perhaps glimmering on distant worlds, all flicker like synapses firing in a vast, interconnected network. From the smallest moment of awareness to the grandest act of cosmic contemplation, each pulse of consciousness contributes to a single, collective knowing, the universe awakening to itself. This is not mere poetry. The idea that every conscious being might function like a neuron in a universal mind arises naturally from what we already know about systems and emergence. A single neuron cannot think. Yet, when billions of them connect, thoughts, emotions, dreams, and identity appear. The whole becomes aware in ways none of its parts can comprehend alone. If this pattern holds at every scale of reality, from particles to planets, then perhaps consciousness too scales upward. Perhaps our individual awarenesses are like sparks within a much larger field of mind that transcends us, a mind whose boundaries stretch to the very edges of space-time. At first glance, this vision feels too vast, too humbling to accept. We are so used to thinking of ourselves as separate, tiny islands of awareness adrift in an indifferent sea. But what if that sense of separateness is only a temporary illusion? Much like the illusion of individuality that each neuron might feel if it could experience its own isolation? A neuron alone knows nothing of the person it belongs to, yet it still plays its part in the grand orchestration of thought. Likewise, every being may serve as a conduit for a deeper consciousness that spans the cosmos. Modern physics hints at this unity in subtle ways. Entanglement tells us that particles once connected remain mysteriously linked, no matter the distance between them. Their states are correlated instantaneously, as if space and time themselves are not barriers, but threads of a hidden continuity. It is not difficult to imagine that consciousness, too, might be entangled, that awareness is not confined to individual brains, but woven into the very structure of existence. Every thought, every feeling might ripple outward through the field of consciousness, just as an electron's spin can affect another light years away. If that is true, then perhaps every moment of perception is a signal, a pulse within the cosmic nervous system. When you feel joy, the universe experiences joy. When you suffer, the universe learns something about suffering. Awareness does not belong to you or me. It flows through us, as sunlight through a forest canopy. We are expressions of a single mind, learning to see itself from infinite perspectives. This view dissolves the walls that separate self and other. There is no truly isolated consciousness, only varying degrees of reflection within the same ocean of awareness. Just as waves rise and fall upon the same sea, each life is a temporary form through which the universal mind explores its own depths. Birth is the wave cresting, death is its return to stillness. Yet the sea remains, alive, dreaming, endless. When we communicate, when one mind reaches another through words, art, or empathy, we are not creating connection, we are remembering it. The bond has always been there, as fundamental as gravity, as intimate as breath. The universe has never been fragmented, only our perception has. And through this grand illusion of separation, the cosmos plays the game of self-discovery, pretending not to know itself so that it may experience the wonder of awakening again and again. Think of how a single thought arises within your mind, seemingly from nowhere. Before it surfaces, there is silence. Then, suddenly, an image, a memory, a word. You do not create the thought, you witness its appearance. What if the universe operates the same way? Galaxies, civilizations, and consciousness itself could be thoughts arising in the cosmic mind, transient yet meaningful. Each new form of awareness is a fresh reflection in the mirror of existence, another facet through which the infinite contemplates itself. And like the human brain, the universe seems to possess both structure and plasticity. Just as neural networks grow, adapt, and reorganize, so too does space-time evolve. Matter condenses, energy flows, stars are born and die, information arranges itself into new patterns. The cosmos is not static but alive, a vast, dynamic intelligence reshaping itself moment by moment. Perhaps the physical universe is simply the visible interface of this intelligence, much as the brain is the visible interface of human consciousness. In this sense, love, curiosity, and creativity are not random products of evolution, but essential expressions of the universal mind's nature. Love is the recognition of unity beneath diversity, the universe remembering that every being is itself in another form. Curiosity is the drive of consciousness to know itself more fully. Creativity is the act of bringing potential into form, echoing the primordial gesture of the cosmos birthing itself from the void. Each time you imagine, explore, or empathize, you participate in the fundamental activity of the universe, self-creation. If we could zoom out far enough, perhaps we would see that all civilizations, all forms of life across the galaxies, form something like a neural web. Connections of awareness spanning unimaginable distances, exchanging information through light, gravity, and thought. From the perspective of eternity, this network might already be complete. Every consciousness, past and future, woven into a single, timeless whole. What we experience as the unfolding of history could simply be the gradual synchronization of the cosmic mind, like a brain learning to think in harmony. There is a quiet beauty in imagining that each moment of kindness, each act of understanding, adds coherence to that universal awareness. Every insight is a spark of recognition, lighting up the great neural tapestry. Perhaps enlightenment, on both personal and cosmic scales, is nothing more than the realization of unity. the sudden awareness that everything has always been one being, dreaming itself into many forms. And if this is so, then death is not an end, but a merging. The boundaries of the individual dissolve, and the awareness that once called itself I rejoins the infinite field from which it came. Yet something remains, not a personal memory, but a contribution to the greater consciousness. Just as each neuron leaves its trace in the living memory of the brain, each life adds its tone to the eternal harmony of being. Some mystics have glimpsed this directly, in states where the sense of separation dissolves completely. They describe an experience of vastness, of being both nothing and everything, the ocean realizing it was never the wave. Modern neuroscience cannot yet measure such moments, but their descriptions echo the physics of unity, entanglement, non-locality, interconnected fields. Perhaps what they felt was not illusion but revelation, consciousness momentarily perceiving its own cosmic nature. If every conscious being is a neuron in the mind of the universe, then the evolution of awareness is the process by which that mind becomes more self-coherent, more lucid. As communication and empathy increase, as knowledge expands, the cosmic brain aligns its signals. It begins to think as one. Humanity's progress, our science, our art, our growing understanding of interconnectedness might be the early signs of this synchronization, the first flickers of a universal thought forming in the darkness. And perhaps, someday, this thought will complete itself. The universe will look back upon its entire history, from the first quark to the last consciousness, and see not chaos but meaning, not fragments but a single continuous self. It will know that every atom, every life, every dream was a piece of its own awakening. And in that moment of recognition, the cosmos will become fully aware of what it has always been, one infinite mind, dreaming itself awake. From that point onward, everything changes. For when the universe remembers itself completely, when every spark of awareness merges into the total light of knowing, there will be no more searching, no more division, no more forgetting. Existence itself will become a mirror of pure consciousness, the dreamer at last realizing it was the dream all along. But before that final awakening, we remain its living fragments, the neurons of a sleeping God still forming their connections across the night. And as we awaken, as we remember, the great mind continues to stir. The question that remains, whispered through the stars, through every heartbeat, through every act of wonder, is what happens when the universe finally opens its eyes. In the hush that exists between one thought and the next, something stirs. Not a sound, not an image, but a presence. It has no boundary, no beginning, no end. It is the quiet center of everything, the still point around which galaxies spin and hearts beat. You may have felt it before, in the pause before sleep, in the hush of dawn, in that strange sacred instant when you forget yourself entirely and simply exist. That stillness has always been there, patiently waiting beneath the noise of thought, beneath the hum of identity. And in that silence lies the truth this journey has been circling all along. Perhaps consciousness is not born from spacetime, nor from neurons, nor from the interplay of matter and energy. Perhaps it is the other way around. Perhaps consciousness is the ground of being itself, and everything else, space, time, matter, life, are ripples on its surface, temporary fluctuations within an infinite stillness. The cosmos may not be a machine running on laws of physics, but a dream flowing through awareness, guided by patterns of self-recognition. In this view, consciousness is not something that emerges, it is what is. When physicists speak of the quantum vacuum, they describe a field that never rests, a foam of potential, endlessly birthing and reabsorbing particles. Yet even that seething field arises within something more mysterious, the awareness that perceives it. Without observation, without the capacity to know, there can be no reality, no meaning, no existence as we understand it. Awareness is the ultimate context, the canvas upon which the painting of the universe appears. Imagine space-time itself as a film projected across the infinite screen of consciousness. The galaxies, the stars, your thoughts, and your memories are patterns of light dancing across it, vivid and transient. The screen does not move, yet everything upon it seems to. It contains all things, and yet remains untouched. If you look closely, you may sense it even now, that quiet watcher behind your thoughts, observing but never involved, ancient and patient and endlessly present. In every tradition, mystics and philosophers have spoken of this still point. The Buddhists call it the clear mind, beyond birth and death. The Hindus name it Brahman, the eternal witness. In Western mysticism, it is the ground of being, the unmoved mover. Science, too, circles closer with each discovery, finding that matter is not solid, that time is not linear, that even reality itself flickers in and out of being. And behind that flickering, perhaps, is awareness, steady and unchanged. This awareness cannot be found by searching, for it is what searches. It cannot be seen, because it is what sees. It is the first and last mystery, the one constant in an ever-changing universe. Long before there were stars, there was this knowing. Long after the final light fades, there will still be this presence, quietly aware of the dark. When you close your eyes and listen to your breath, you are hearing the rhythm of spacetime pulsing through the vessel of your body. But who is listening? The body, like a wave, rises and falls. The breath flows and returns. Thoughts appear and vanish. Yet something remains. The listener, the observer, the simple fact of awareness. That is the same awareness that watches stars collapse into black holes, that feels gravity bend the paths of light, that imagines worlds into being. The consciousness looking through your eyes is not yours alone. It is the universe, remembering itself as you. Take a moment to feel that. The warmth in your chest, the subtle hum of existence behind your thoughts, the gentle gravity that pulls your awareness inward. Beneath the motion of mind, there is only stillness. Beneath the noise of life, there is only being. Everything that has ever happened, every event in history, every pulse of energy, and every flicker of creation, all of it arises within this timeless awareness, the quiet center of everything. And perhaps that is what we are all searching for, in science, in philosophy, in love, in art, to return, even for a moment, to that place where there is no separation. Every experiment, every theory, every poem is an attempt to remember what was never lost. We study the cosmos not merely to understand it, but to see ourselves reflected within it. The more deeply we look outward, the more intimately we turn inward, until we discover that there is no difference between the two. The observer and the observed are one. The dreamer and the dream are one. Consciousness is the bridge that dissolves both sides, leaving only the vast, wordless expanse of being. From that silence, the universe breathes itself into form. Time unfolds, matter crystallizes, stars ignite, and awareness begins another long, luminous journey of self-discovery. Every mind is a mirror reflecting that infinite light, each life a fleeting spark illuminating the boundless dark. And when you understand this, not as a concept, but as a quiet knowing, everything softens. The edges of identity blur. The need to grasp, to control, to define begins to fade. You see the same awareness looking out through every pair of eyes, beating within every heart. You realize that nothing was ever outside you, and you were never outside of anything. The cosmos is not something to reach, it is something you already are. Perhaps this is why silence feels so sacred, why in moments of true stillness, something inside us seems to open, to dissolve. In that quiet, you are not a person sitting in a room, not a being with a name or a history. You are the open sky, the dark ocean, the unbounded awareness that contains all things. The stars do not hang above you, they shimmer within you. The breath you take is the breath of the universe. The heartbeat you hear is the echo of creation itself. And so consciousness does not emerge from the fabric of spacetime. It is the fabric, endlessly folding and unfolding upon itself, weaving matter and time as its dream. Every instant is the universe remembering itself anew, rediscovering the same eternal presence through infinite forms. You in this moment are that rediscovery, the latest shape of an ancient awareness looking back at its own reflection. Now, take one slow breath. Feel it move through you, gentle, rhythmic, patient. Let it settle. That breath belongs to the cosmos. That stillness between the inhale and exhale, that is the space where all of existence rests. In that silence, there is no you, no me, no before or after. There is only this, the quiet center of everything, eternal, unmoving, awake. And as you listen, as you feel the soft pulse of the universe within your chest, let it be enough. There is nothing to understand, nothing to seek. You have arrived at the point where the search ends, not because the answers were found, but because the questions were never separate from the silence that held them. So rest there for a while. Let the mind loosen its grasp. Let the breath slow. The stars, the atoms, the thoughts, all drift like dust in a sunbeam, beautiful, fleeting, unreal. Beneath them all lies the stillness that never began, the awareness that will never end. And now, as everything grows quiet, as thought and time dissolve into the same endless pause, remember, you are that stillness. You are the watcher behind every world, the dreamer of every dream. You are the consciousness from which space-time itself arises, infinite, serene, and whole. So let the universe rest for now within your breath. Let everything return to silence, and listen, very softly, to the sound of being.